Hi there, Omega Apex 128, Joshua Beach here for another edition of Josh's Vlog. Now, know it's been a while, but last time I left you off with the Famicom by Nintendo, and I said that I would continue on with the Phillips CD-i. So, needless to say, I don't want to, but let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so, here's the backstory for those of you who don't know why people regrettably like to, well, not even like to, but don't like to talk about the Philips CD-i. Number one, the project started, amazingly enough, all the way back in 1986. Sony and Nintendo were working together, hand in hand, to develop a CD add-on for the Super Famicom SNES, as it would be known in North America. The project, of course, the PlayStation. Now, as far as development on the PlayStation goes, it was under development for the following 5 years, and then in the summer of 1991, it would be released at the CES convention. CES convention would release the PlayStation, the CD add-on for the Nintendo. However, the very next day, Nintendo backed out of the contract. Reason being, they didn't want to share. They didn't like the deal for profits that Sony had proposed. So, what ended up happening, they backed out of the deal, gave Sony 100% of the rights, and the console wars began. So in the meantime, what was Nintendo going to do? They had the Super Nintendo, which of course they were going to, stick that CD add-on the bottom. Of course, it was going to be popular and big, so who were they going to go with? Philips. So basically, the contract deal stated that Nintendo would be all about the marketing, the profits, money, while Philips, the deal was that Philips would be given the right to some of the Nintendo games, which of course became later notorious for having Hotel Mario, The Legend of Zelda, The Wand of Gamelon, the Adventure of Link. I don't even know. It's not even worth mentioning. They have Zelda's Adventure. Bottom line is, they were absolutely horrible games, now considered collector's items by many. But I'm sure you're asking, what about the CD add-on for the Super Nintendo? Well, same situation. Philips went on its own to make its own CDI. Nintendo again backed out of the concept to make the add-on. I believe the CD add-on was later made, but under the Nintendo name. I mean, they just decided to drop the deal with Philips. They decided to drop it with Sony first. And of course, Sony prospered, and the Philips CD-i is probably known as one of the biggest flops in video game history, next to the Virtual Boy. It was, the main concept and idea behind it when it initially released. There were more along the lines of educational games or self-help discs, photo CDs, music CDs, stuff like that. So it wasn't a game console to begin with, but had its fair share of point-and-click games. Like, this is the only game that I have right here, Sesame Street. I have not played it. The CDI works just fine, but I don't want to play this, bottom line. So, needless to say, what else do we have here? Oh, the CDIs, yes. The CDI, obviously, that's not the Philips CDI that many people are used to seeing. Philips CDI itself was a very large console. They're very hard to get your hands onto, and most importantly, very expensive. That one I picked up for like $80 or something like that, and yes, I can say it does work. The controller that I got for it is this one right here. This I guess is considered the spoon controller. It wasn't really necessary to have like a contemporary controller that you see nowadays with like a D-pad and a bunch of buttons on it. I mean, as the console would later expand and everything and develop, yeah, sure, they had a couple more controllers that had the D-pad and everything, but I don't have them. The other remote that was released with the console was a wireless remote, but I mean, it was, these were point and click games, so obviously it wasn't technically quote unquote wireless. It was more along the lines of more along the lines of, you point it at the sensor and it does what it needs to do. But I mean, that would not be the remote of choice when it came to games like Hotel Mario or Legend of Zelda. So needless to say, the games were not awesome or anything like that by any means. It remained strictly an educational system through the early 90s until it finally ended its life in 1997. Quite honestly, in my own opinion, I'm surprised it lasted that long. I really am. It's seen as just a commercial failure. And I honestly think that's kind of one of the reasons why Nintendo was never in any kind of hurry to jump the gun into creating discs for their consoles, because you got to think, Super Nintendo was out for quite some time while the PlayStation started to move along, following up with the release of, we had the Sega Dreamcast, Sega Saturn, the Nintendo 64, all kinds of stuff like that. Of course, the 3DO was out there as well, but I mean, it was expensive. Again, another expensive console that wasn't all that great. So I think that's my opinion. That's my opinion anyway on as to why Nintendo took so long in making some disc consoles. But I mean, as we can see, I've got a PlayStation 3 sitting right over there, and I like it very much. But I've always found myself to be a hardcore Nintendo fan, and I just hope that maybe someday they'll do something. They'll do something to bring it back. Revolutionize the game industry, like they've done with the Nintendo Wii and here in the near future, the Nintendo 3DS. So, needless to say, bottom line of the vlog, the Phillips CD-i gets 2 thumbs down. Be sure to check it out. For my next vlog, since we are discussing the Phillips CD-i and everything like that, and how I said that this particular console was by Magnavox, I'll cover another console by Magnavox. And this console in particular uses this controller. Take a good look at it. Do you recognize it yet? You'll see next time.